Karen McGrane, it's so nice to see you today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I was sharing with you a lot of my listeners, like me, are mid career, senior career. And one of the things that I found most beneficial in the listeners is chatting with people like you who have had seasoned, experienced, accomplished careers to hear where you're at now and what lessons learned. So thank you again. And to start, the hardest question of the day is asking you to take a really extensive, impressive career and describe it in a nutshell. But to start, can you share a little bit? A lot of my listeners know you. Can you share a little bit of your background and what's brought you here today at a high level?
Sure. I got a master's in technical communication and HCI back in the late 90s. I joined the digital agency Razorfish. I think, about employee number 30. And so I was at Razorfish for almost 10 years and had a variety of roles there. And when I left, I was the VP and national lead for UX. So from there, some folks from Razorfish and I left and started our own firm called Bond Art and Science. And I ran Bond for probably another 10 years or so. I also was the faculty of the School of Visual Arts. So I taught design management there for 14 years. And after that, I started Autogram with a couple of other business partners. And we ran that. That started during the COVID times, actually. So we did that for about 5 years. And then Jeff Eaton and I were acqui-hired by Contentful, which is a composable DXP platform, about 9 months ago. So I've been in-house for the first time in a product team for the only time in my career. And honestly, it's been wonderful. I am just thrilled to get to have a new challenge at this point in my career. I wasn't really expecting it, but it's been better than I ever hoped.
About 2.5 years ago, I started liftup. And the majority of women in the community, they're mid-career or senior career. So they've been
Mhm.
doing work for quite a long time. Many of them are in tech or tech adjacent. And many of them are feeling this point, this inflection point that they've hit where admittedly it's been messy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in hitting a certain age, they're scared and uncertain and not necessarily having as much hope. What would you tell these women and what have you learned from the inflection points you've hit?
Every bit of success I've ever had has been based on my professional reputation and based on, I think, building, I hate to call it a personal brand, but writing books, speaking, being out there on Twitter, having people know who I am, and having a point of view, having an opinion about what matters that I think I've been very consistent about across my career. That's how I have gotten pretty much all of my work. I never, as a consultant, did a lot of outbound marketing that wasn't speaking or writing. And that sort of, I described that as like a virtuous cycle. Go give a talk, somebody sees you give a talk, they hire you to come in and give a workshop. They like the workshop, they hire you for a product or project. Like that just builds on itself. And the same with the Contentful acquihire. It wasn't something Jeff and I were particularly looking for. It just dropped in our lap and we were both just, interesting. We hadn't considered this, but it sounded like a great opportunity and it wasn't something I was expecting. And I've described it to my therapist as like, I'm ambivalent about this in the sense that I am experiencing a full range of emotions about this transition. Like, I'm excited, I'm scared, I'm a little bit sad to be leaving my consulting work and my business behind. I'm intrigued about what new opportunities this is going to mean. It's going to be a chance to grow. I can feel all of those things at once. And I did. I experienced all of them. But then getting in there, it's amazing. I love it.
How did you decide to make the leap?
I think a lot of people know the tech industry has been in a rocky period. I think especially there was a COVID spike. And then as we exited the zero interest rate time, that has shifted a lot of the economics of the tech industry and has shifted consulting budgets. So I've spoken quite a lot about the fact that with the end of Twitter and the end of the conference circuit during COVID, that cut off really our entire marketing funnel. It's like we no longer had the means to communicate in the way that we used to. And that shift was really difficult to navigate. I know I was not alone in that. I have many peers who have been longtime freelancers or consultants who said that they experienced a similar softening of the market. And so I think Jeff and I were in a position where we were like, we've been doing this for a while. This is an interesting opportunity. A paycheck would be nice. It just seemed like, yeah, why not? I mean, my attitude was literally just like, what's the worst that can happen? We'll try it out, do it for a couple of years. Maybe it doesn't work out. I can always go back to consulting. There's a lot of serendipity where it's just a willingness to be like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's try.
I think more consultants and UXers have been publicly speaking about the downturn and how it's affected them. When you think about your career, I'm speaking with a lot of women now who are in the midst of the messiness, either lost their job, scared of losing their jobs. I'm thinking about in your career, you've had ups and downs. Can you describe experience where you were in that messy middle and how you handled it?
I took a sabbatical in 2018. And in retrospect, I was in the throes of perimenopause and I was extremely, I mean, I was just on a hair trigger. And there I was ready to punch some people. And I had a meeting with a client where it was like, I mean, I will just say it was like a room full of women. And then there was this one dude. And it's like, there's always this one dude. And he was being a pain in the yeah. And I like snapped at him in a way that I don't think I've ever snapped at a client before, where I realized in that moment, I was like, oh, I might need to like take a break. I had been working for 30 years straight. Like I had actually had a full-time job for 30 years and I had never taken more than a couple of weeks off here and there. So I took the summer off. I called it Dirtbag Summer. The archetype was, I had a whole like archetype for Dirtbag Summer, which was like a college kid. He's home for the summer. His parents don't want him to work. He's like sleeping late. He's playing video games. He's eating frozen burritos and frozen pizza. He's hanging out with his dirtbag friends, like no responsibilities. I made it, it was very expressly, I am not trying to improve myself. I am not going to learn a language. I am not going to pick up a musical instrument. People were like, are you going to travel? I'm like, no, I'm not going to travel. I've traveled in my life. I'm going to stay home. And it was actually one of the best things I've ever done. And, you know, it was a little bit nerve wracking because if you're a consultant, like 3 months off of work is 3 months of no money. But I was in a position that I could afford to do it. And it actually really changed my way of thinking about a lot of things in my life. I came back just more grounded. I came back with a renewed perspective on what I wanted to do. I'm really grateful that I did it. So I did it in 2018 and I would have had a much harder time during the COVID lockdowns if I had not taken that break. And so being willing to recognize, like, you know what? It's okay. I can take 3 months off. I can afford to do so. And I can come back and the business will still be there. The clients will still be there. That all turned out to be true.
I did want to chat about Contentful and going in-house. One thing you did mention, you said it's been a wonderful experience. You also mentioned having the consistent stability and revenue coming in. I'd be curious to get your take. Talk to now 100 plus mid-career, senior career women, some of them who are thinking about going out on their own, starting their own venture. What does come up is the help sometimes to the nervous system to also have something that's consistently bringing in revenue, just being outside of the unpredictable mode. And I'm curious, was that part of what's been wonderful about being in-house, just the stability around it? Or can you talk to this move? It's now been close to it. What is it? 9 months, 10 months?
9 months. I love the job. I mean, I joked all the time when I was in consulting that I was feral, basically. Like, I did not think it would be possible for me to have a boss and work for a company. I did not want to manage a team. I liked having the flexibility to run my own business. And it turns out like I love the company. I love my team. I love my peers. it's all been just so surprisingly, like refreshingly, just a very pleasant place to work. And
Okay.
I think the culture is really healthy, and that does not happen by accident.
You're in a leadership position hiring right now in this admittedly messy time. You're also a very senior experienced woman in business and tech. And there's many women right now who are experienced in business and tech and are looking for work in-house, and they're mid-career, senior career, and okay, they're midlife, they're of a certain age, and they're wondering what to do in this climate with, and I'm sure you're getting hundreds of resumes coming in. Do you have advice for these women in terms of next steps?
So, being in a hiring manager position has given me, I would say, a substantial amount of insight about the job market and what the process is like on the inside. The advice I would give is that learning how the ATS works is crucial, and knowing how your application is going to be read by the hiring manager is really important. Having a resume and a cover letter that is tailored to the exact position is the best thing you can possibly do. And if that means that you have to rewrite your resume to account for what the job title is that they're looking for and what the hiring manager has described in the job description, you should do that. I think I've heard people ask questions like, is it okay to update your title to reflect the title that they're looking for? And the answer is yes. I have no way to validate what your job title is. Like, I'm not, that's
Yeah.
not, I don't, if I'm hiring for a director of partner enablement, I want to see partner enablement on your resume. That's what's going to
Yeah.
get my attention. I don't want to see sales enablement. I don't want to see learning services. I want to see partner enablement. Was your job 100% partner enablement? I can find that on the interview.
Yeah.
But if you want to get through that first round of hiring, having the exact words that I'm going to be scanning for is the best way to get through the process.
Karen, can I ask you as a hiring manager, because I have heard anecdotally that it's not even worth applying if you do not know someone and have a connection. It's all about connections. And I don't know if it's not worth it. Of course, people can do their best to submit a strong application, but 95% of the time, the success stories we hear are someone had that deep connection from the past, and that's what's led to the next job.
I would say for all the roles that I'm recruiting for, we have referrals
Yeah.
from either internal people or friend of a friend kind of things. And I will say that gets people a little bit of extra attention. I make a point of reaching out to the recruiter and saying, this is my referral. And I go back to the candidate and I'm like, look, this isn't going to get you anything other than just like a little bit of extra eyes on your resume and no promises, but it will get you that. The people who have referred candidates for my roles, honestly, it'll get them a recruiter screen for sure, like an in-person recruiter screen, and will likely get a screen with me. But if they're not qualified, it doesn't get them any more than that. And I will definitely say I have passed on some people who were referrals from very senior people in the organization. I'm going to hire the best person, not the person who got referred. And yeah, I would say that for the majority of the roles that I'm hiring for, no, none of them are coming in with a referral.
Yeah.
They're coming in cold.
I was talking with Kristen Fitzpatrick, who's the head of external relations and career and professional development at Harvard Business School. And I was talking with her about the discussions I've had with women in their 50s and 60s who have had badass careers in tech. There is sexism, there is ageism, there is racism, and these are
Oh, totally.
systemic barriers in place. And I'm curious what you would tell a woman in her 50s or 60s who had a great career in tech. What would you tell them to do next? When I asked Kristen that question, she said, as you're growing and as you're aging, a lot of women at HBS and other groups are thinking about portfolio careers. And she actually said, finding multiple sources of revenue and figuring out what next might be the
Yeah.
next stage. What do you tell people? It's
Yeah.
rough.
It sucks. I think all I could say is like all of those things are true.
Mhm.
And that, yeah, you might really have to attack the problem from all different fronts, like being very strategic about the jobs that you apply for. I guess one of the things that I see from a hiring manager standpoint is I can absolutely tell when people are just spamming their resume around versus the people who are very thoughtfully applying for the right jobs and looking for the right jobs and do the latter, reaching out to your network and trying to identify not just full-time opportunities, but consulting opportunities. Like that may be one route. I would look into teaching. If there's opportunities to teach, there may be it may be time to write a book. It may be
Yep.
time to think creatively about doing more speaking as, conferences open up again. Maybe you want to put a course together. It's the way to get your name out there is probably to be creative and think about arrange a portfolio of ways that you might find income.
I love hearing you said, 9, 10 months ago when you were considering this offer to go in house, what's the worst thing that could happen? I can always leave. But what I hear from you now is you're strategically thinking ahead a year or 2 years or what your long term strategy is. How does that feel?
It feels great in the sense that like this is a a growing company. It is a company that is investing. They want to IPO, like,
Mhm.
and I've had my share of stock options in my life, and none of them have ever paid off. But this one, it doesn't seem like it's a pipe dream. It seems like no, this is an actual practical reality that if we grow at a reasonable amount, an achievable amount, like we could either IPO or have an exit, an acquisition exit. So that's like actively motivating, but it's definitely something that I think is in the mindset of the business. And so that informs how I'm thinking about the next like 2, 3, 5 years. And yeah, just for where I'm at, frankly, I would love it if I could retire from Contentful. Let's see where this goes. I'll work here another X number of years and then I can be done.
I've had a bunch of conversations with people where I don't think it's toxic positivity. I know it isn't, but the downturn has been hard. But
Hmm.
many people, including myself, have said, if this downturn didn't happen, we may have continued to go along the path we were. Like it was a great path, things were going well. But the downturn led many of us to start thinking about what could be another trajectory. And I'm wondering when you and your business partner, Jeff, like you were very honest about the fact like it was a great opportunity, but also the downturn was coming into play. And
Oh, for sure.
when you're telling this story, you're now thinking this might be the opportunity to see this through until retirement and going off. You couldn't have imagined this would be the path if we hadn't hit this bump in the road. Is that accurate?
While I am relatively new as a full-time employee at Contentful, I was a very early advisor to the business. So my book Content Strategy for Mobile and what I was writing and speaking about regarding like at the time headless CMS and omni-channel
Mhm.
publishing, I understand was it influenced the founders of the company. And so I sat in on some of their very early investor calls. I advised the product kind of over the course of the years. And so while I wasn't expecting to take a full time job, if I were to actually get a job, there were maybe a handful of companies that I would have considered, and this was definitely one of them.
Mhm.
I think that zero interest rates were a very bad thing for civilization.
Yeah.
I really think it created some perverse incentives in the tech industry to grow, and companies overhired. They invested in things that they probably should not have because money was free money. We have no reason not to take on debt. We're seeing a correction now, but I think it's a reversion to the mean that probably will result in healthier businesses and more thoughtful hiring processes, more thoughtful investments in reasonable growth. that isn't just driven by the fact of it doesn't cost us anything to take on debt, so let's just take on a bunch of debt.
Another thing I wanted to touch upon with you, I mentioned it's a little, and you had said it's a little unsettling. All these people know me, and how do they know me? How do they know my reputation? You do have a reputation in addition to your expertise in the UX world, the design product world, and your books. And you're also known as an advocate for women in business and tech and a champion for women. This past couple of years hasn't been easy on anyone, but I have been seeing, especially for women in my network, when it's been hard, we've been coming together and finding community together. And I'm wondering, you've spoken to your network and your connections always being there for you to lift you up, but where has community come into play in your career and in your life?
Oh, Slack.
Oh,
Slack is like, that's where it's gone since Twitter.
yeah.
Twitter used to be, I mean, I met my husband on Twitter.
Thank you, Twitter.
Yeah, it's like, it was a horrible place, but it was a
Mhm.
horrible place.
Yeah.
And I'm sad that it's gone, but also it was a horrible place. I have very, again, ambivalent feelings about Twitter. My community, where I go for that kind of connection, is Slack now, but then also Reddit. So
Yeah.
in my ridiculous free time volunteer job, I moderate our UX design, which is, I honestly believe, the largest online community, professional community for UX designers. We have maybe 220,000 subscribers. I find it gives me a really unique look at the UX field, especially from the point of people who are younger and who are like earlier in their career or who are trying to break into the field. I find it valuable in the sense that I have a lot of empathy for people who are trying to break into the field, or I think especially people who are like on their first or second job and can't find their third job.
Mhm.
Like that, I think is a really challenging place to
Yeah.
be, because it's, what do you do at that point? Like, it's one thing to have had a successful career and be in your mid 50s, and it's
Yeah.
another thing to be 30 and not know where to go next.
For those in their 30s who are feeling uncertainty, what are you telling them right now about what's happening in the field, in the space?
The message that I really try to deliver as consistently as I can is that you have to invest in your network,
Mhm.
and you have got to focus on your relationships with your coworkers, your relationships with perhaps people you went to school with. Like, one of the questions that comes up a lot is, should I get a master's degree? Would that
Mhm.
help? And having taught in a program for a long time, the message that I have consistently is that people over index on the value of the credential and on the
Yeah.
value of the skills they're going to gain. And they under index on the value of the network, the cohort of students, the alumni network, the job placement services. And all of that is really the value of getting a master's degree. If you have a cohort of fellow students that all go on to jobs in the field, if you have an alumni network that you can tap into of people who have gone on to jobs in the field, that's where you're going to get jobs from. And that's something that will continue to pay off over the course of your career.
That's such helpful advice, Karen. Just imagining the future. This is your last full-time engagement in-house. And then you've finished with this really impressive career. What do you see coming beyond that? Are you thinking about what your next chapter would be beyond the professional aspects?
Yes, I tell my husband all the time, I am going to finally get to live my dream of being a rich housewife. I don't actually want to be a rich housewife. That's the joke, is
Yeah.
that that's not really what my dream is. I think I could very happily consult again, not full time, but continue to advise clients or companies for a while. But also, yeah, just like go back to my dirtbag summer, like cook food, hang out with the dog. I could absolutely see myself like wrapping up a Contentful and maybe taking a year just to chill out and then go back to teaching maybe.
I think about this notion of retirement. It's so different. Like my parents' generation, the generation before, it was like, okay, 62, 65, sit down, watch TV, get my iPad out. Like I don't know. A lot of women I've been speaking to, I'm thinking we're not thinking, oh, we're just hanging it up. We're definitely going to relax more, but A lot of us have loved what we've learned and done and don't see us just shutting down.
I really like my job. I describe my work-life balance as that I like my job and I do it when I need to do it. And then I also do other things. It's not like I work constantly, but I know people who maintain a very strict work from home, they get up, they get dressed, they go to their office, they work
Yeah.
in their office. I have none of that. I work when I need to work. I, do other things during the day if I have to. And I feel like that's what retirement will be for me too, is like it'll be a transition, but a transition just to thinking about work in a different way.
And so we've covered a lot in this hour we've been chatting, Karen. I'm wondering if my listeners take just one thing from our conversation today, one thing that you'd like them to take away from your career story and your lessons learned, what is the one biggest thing you'd like them to take away from our chat today?
Nothing I have done, it wasn't like I had a plan. It was more like I recognized opportunities as they showed up and I took advantage of them. And maybe that's it's like a lot of it is trust your gut. If something feels off, it's probably off. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of cases, like working in consulting for many years, the lesson you learn the hard way, right? Like I remember during the 2007, 2008 downturn, like taking on some projects that I really should not have taken on because I
Yeah.
needed the money and I knew it was going to be bad. And it turned out to be even worse than I expected. Having been through that, that's when you stop making that mistake is
Yeah.
like there's money that's not worth it. And a bad client isn't worth it. But it's the same with the good things. Like sometimes you just get spidey sense with Contentful was like, okay, I'm going to be jumping in with both feet here and I don't know what's going to happen, but I've gotten a good vibe from everybody that I've talked to. And it seems like a risk worth taking.
Yeah.
And that's your gut.
It's not always the right decision to take the revenue and take the money. A lot of people are weighing these decisions, like, even if it's not the perfect consulting engagement or the perfect full time opportunity, revenue matters and financial stability matters. And people are in this period where I've spoken to many people who are saying, I want to trust my gut, but I have to pay the bills. And what I've said is the closer you can get to a bridge that's aligned with your values. But of course, we also understand there's the reality of paying your bills and taking care of your family. I'm curious what you'd say to them. I'm just like, yeah, we get it. You have responsibilities and you have to do that.
So a lot people will ask me, you've been in consulting for a long time, like, how do I get a client to pay me? This client is dragging out the relationship. They're being a jerk about things. How do I fix this? And the answer is you fix that by not working with those clients. You
Yeah.
have to have a better sense upfront of which clients are going to be bad to work with. And the way that you learn that is during the contracting process. If they're difficult during contracting, they are not going to get easier once you sign the contract. So if you're having difficulty, if they seem like they're going to be difficult, I guarantee you they're going to be difficult. Now, you can look at that and say, okay, they've been difficult during contracting, but I need this money. That's where you learn how to write a really good contract. You learn how to write an absolutely bulletproof agreement where everything is spelled out in exacting detail about what it is that you're going to do. You don't leave anything up to chance. And that's what protects you. The conversations that you have with the client where you spell everything out in exacting detail before you sign on the dotted line, that's what protects you. And that's what gives you something to go back to the client with and say, hey, we said this, I'm doing this. If that's not what you want anymore, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay me more.
Mhm.
Like you don't learn that without screwing yourself over a few times. But,
Yeah. No, this is
there's nothing more
important advice.
motivating.
It's been such a thrill and honor to chat with you today. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. I hope it's not another 20 years until we talk again.
Me too. I'll do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you.